is a drama professor and drama lecturer at Stanford University. She's the author of Improv Wisdom, Don't Prepare, Just Show Up. And she currently teaches part-time in the continuing studies program at Stanford, where she teaches adults how to improvise. Patricia has spent her life studying the creative process in human relations. As a counselor, she uses an Eastern approach to problem solving, and as a creative person, her strengths are as an improviser. Her goal is to live life every day mindfully, gratefully, and helpfully, and to encourage others to do the same. Patricia, welcome to Older Women and Friends.
Thank you, Jane. What a lovely introduction.
Thank you. Short but sweet. So I would like to start by having you describe what kind of kid you were.
When I think back, I think I was a really normal kind of kid. I was adventuresome. I can remember exploring the neighborhood. I was basically social. I wanted to know everybody. So at about 7 or 8 years old, I got permission to go and knock on the doors of the people on my block to meet them. And I would go in and I would engage them in conversation and find out what they were doing. So I was the little neighborhood brat that was always interacting. And my parents were wonderful. They believed in me. My dad said, "Patsy, you can do anything. You could be president if you wanted to." And there was something about his saying that kind of gave me permission to try all sorts of things. And so I think I would say I was an outgoing, adventurous, curious kid.
Did you have siblings?
I did. A brother and a sister. I was the oldest of the trio. And when my parents divorced when I was about 13, I became basically the adult in the house. So I kind of took care of my brother and sister. They were both good kids, nothing to complain about. I'm 83. I'm going to be 84 next week. And so we were living in times, as you well know, that where all of these issues of media and television, internet, phones and whatnot wasn't part of our world. We were running around in the block and getting in the woods and building forts in the backyard and that sort of thing. It was a wonderful time to grow up.
I agree. I think about that often. We just get on our bike or walk, as you said, to somebody else's house. And generally, if I remember, Mom would say something like, "Okay, well, make sure you're home at 6 o'clock for dinner." Do you think in any way that your childhood and the kind of kid you were informed your interest in drama?
Possibly so. I think I was always interested in outgoing things. I loved to go to movies and to the theater. When I discovered drama in high school, I immediately showed up at the drama club and tried out for the plays. And it just became clear to me that acting and theater used all of my interests and talents and gave me a place to have fun and create a social life. It's interesting when I think back now, I believe as a child and growing up, I was very much an extrovert. As I've gotten older, into my late 70s and 80s, I've become an introvert. I'm much happier, in a sense, in quiet spaces and without a lot of social activity. So I've shifted that point of view.
Any idea why that might have happened?
I don't know. It's a very good question. But I do seem to thrive on quiet and silence. And I was just printing out a 7-page resume of all the stuff I've done. And I realized, my goodness, I was out there doing stuff a lot all of my life. And I think maybe in my 80s, I'm slower. Everything is kind of quieted down. And that feels really good. Instead of wishing I was out doing more, I'm really thriving on the quiet times.
So you began teaching drama. And I guess my question is, before we get to that, did you always, you mentioned that you tried out for roles in school plays, and yet you ended up teaching drama. So where did that change come in? Or, how did that work when you decided maybe you didn't want to necessarily be on the stage?
Well, I think it happened after undergraduate school, I went to Richmond Professional Institute to take some drama classes because I was now hooked on theater and drama. And the head of that program, Raymond Hodges, took me in his office one day and he says, Patricia, I think you've got talent as a teacher. I think you could be a great teacher. And there's a position opening at St. Catherine's School for Girls here in Richmond, and I'm going to recommend you for it if you'd like. And I thought, well, I never thought of that, but I'd give it a try. So he recommended me. I got the job, and all of a sudden I was the drama teacher for a whole girls' school, and I was in charge of the plays. And I found myself with a whole bunch of new and interesting things to do to become the drama teacher. And I've just loved it. To me, it's been the most marvelous career to have had over the years, moving it from a girls' school to college and to graduate school, then to Stanford. So I've been really lucky.
And you started at Stanford in 1977, if my little research is correct. What did you learn or begin to learn about your students? And I'm specifically referring to improvisation and what you found that they were comfortable with in doing and what they were not.
Great question, Jane, because that was the kind of the beginning of my career. You've nailed it there. When I got to Stanford, it seemed that the students there who have had to excel academically to get to a place like Stanford were always good at producing the correct answer and the right thing. And so when I was trying to help students embody other characters, I might say, what do you think or feel about this situation? And they were kind of clueless. They didn't have access to their own imaginations and their own humanity. I needed some kind of a game or subject that would help them open up and liberate their own humanity, if you will. And what jumped into my life was a wonderful man named Keith Johnstone, who is considered the father of modern improvisation teaching. So I met him at Esalen Institute. I was doing a workshop. I got his book and started using some of his games and exercises. And lo and behold, these kind of academic, carefully modulated students, through those games, found a way to open up and to have fun, to loosen. There's a lot of tension, I think, when you're trying to get the right answer. Improv then became not only a tool for helping undergraduates be better actors. I had engineers and software developers and lawyers that took the drama classes too, and they began to say, this improv work it's really changing how I interact with my family, with my employees. These are life skills. Patricia, you should write a book.
Which you did. And I have not had the pleasure of reading it, but you just mentioned exercises and so forth. And I had a question here is, well, what do we need to know in order to begin to feel comfortable, not planning, but just showing up?
That's a perfect question, because there are three things an improviser really learns to understand with their body. And one is, we call it the circus bow. When if you make a mistake and you screw up something, instead of saying, oh, I apologize, I'm blah, blah, blah. Instead, like a clown, you stand in the circle and you raise your arms and you say, ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. What we learn is to kind of loosen ourselves over mistakes. And that ta-da is a symbol of, I just screwed up and it's fine. Because in most cases, a mistake is just an evaluation of something. A teacher once said, cats don't make mistakes. So an improviser needs to know that making mistakes is really, there aren't any mistakes. We go with what happens and we keep developing and we keep making something out of it. The other really important concept that we study is the well-known notion of yes and. It's how improv works. It means whatever your partner says is going to be true and you're going to accept it. Not only accept it, but build on it. So if you said, we're going to now start our meeting with a song and let's sing this together, I'd say, great, let's go. Even if I don't know what it is, I build upon that. And why don't you give me the first verse? Wonderful. Let's go ahead. So the yes and principle, which can be helpful in life and business, is a positive attitude about whatever's going on and a kind of curiosity. It doesn't mean you necessarily like the offer that has just been made, but you don't block it. So if we were doing a scene and you said, here's my dog, Fido, I'd want to say, oh, wow, he looks like a Boston Terrier. Is that right? And you'd say, yes, and I got him at the dog show. But someone who wasn't skilled in improv might block. Is that your dog, Fido? No, that's no dog. That's my uncle. So when you block something, comedy is created by cutting down or blocking your partner. So we're trying to do the opposite.
And I'm just wondering, is that the opposite of a yes, but?
Yes, exactly. Yes, but is really a kind of a slightly more polite form of no.
Yeah.
And we're all good at that. Part of the games we play is let's try to do something, a task. Let's make a special party for our boss and get together and how's it going to go? And then we do it 3 different ways. We do it just blocking, finding fault or some problem with whatever the other person suggests, back and forth. And then we do it yes, but, and we see that that's really very much like the first way. And then we try it with yes and. By trying these techniques on games and things like that, we get a feeling of what it is to work collaboratively. Unfortunately, a lot of our politics today is just block. I'd like to take all our Congress people and put them in a room and teach them a little bit of yes and.
Good luck. That would be wonderful. So I guess I understand all of this in personal relationships, both on the stage and off. But if we're not to prepare for a job interview or a podcast conversation, that's a little scary. And is that what you're recommending as we take improv off the stage and bring it into real life?
No, it's not never prepare, even though the subtitle of my book is Don't Prepare, Just Show Up. What I really mean is go ahead and prepare. Prepare all you like, make lists, ask questions, do anything, because our minds present something, our minds naturally will prepare. So there's no such thing as not preparing. But what I really want you to do is go ahead and prepare. But then when we show up together or when you take the stage to give your presentation, don't read your speech. You've got to be there as a real person and speak in normal human conversational language. And it also takes into account not just the speech, but what's really happening in the room. So if you go into a formal presentation and the audience is all there and you get up to the podium, but you notice that the room is really hot and you can see people fanning themselves, that an improviser would try to take care of that first before just launching into the speech as if it didn't happen. So it might be you'd start by saying, whoa, seems like it's a little warm in here. Margaret in the back, could you get the AC going for us? Great. And everyone's going to be relieved if you're dealing with the real situation. Improvisers can prepare all they like, but like right now, I didn't know what our questions are going to be, and I didn't want to. It seems to me I'm much more likely to have something honest and interesting to say if I'm really working from this moment now. Does that make sense, Jim?
It makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. Well, you've referred to exercises and games and I happened to watch a video where you were talking about the thanks to whom exercise. And I bet listeners, I found it fascinating, and I'd love to have you just quickly explain the rules of that game.
Wonderful. That's one of my favorite games because it helps us shift our attention from we're all normally self-centered, I think. And this is a game where you're invited to pick a category in this case. Thanks to whom am I here today? Might be the question. Thanks to whom am I here? And then I would see how long a list I could make of that. In fact, if you and I do this right now, I'll say one and then you say somebody that you think of. So I'm here thanks to Jane Leader, who invited me.
And I'm here thanks to Patricia Madson for accepting my invitation.
And I'm here because I was able to have a nourishing breakfast that my husband cooked this morning.
Oh, I wish I could say that. I'm here because of my mother.
Oh, yes. And I'm here because of my mother also, and her encouraging me to try new things.
And I'm here as a podcaster because it's a culmination of all the skills that I have honed during decades and decades.
Absolutely. And I'm here thanks to the technology of the Riverside app that allows us to communicate with each other and over time and space. Isn't that a great miracle?
Let me think. I am here because of my husband, because he's got the cat sequestered in his bedroom so that I can have peace and quiet.
Wonderful. Well, I'm here because I closed the door for our cat too. She loves to come to my podcast and jump up on the computer screen.
So, and my understanding is that perhaps that was really fun to do it just live in person. I also think you suggested that we could go into a quiet space, that we could give ourselves about 20 minutes, that we have paper and pen with us, and that we actually devise this list, which you and I just started. And then what happens after that? Do we share our list with a group if we are in fact in a group?
Yes, and it's voluntary too. So if we come back together after we've gone off and made our list and then have a conversation about what that means, that when we're really conscious of the long line of people whose love and attention and work have created the possibility for us to be alive today, especially as older women, our list, if we take the time to do this, is probably really long. And it could also bring up some nice memories of, golly, I'd forgotten that there was a woman that apparently recommended me to you.
Correct.
That had done your podcast. Do you remember her name?
Sally. And then she has a very interesting, very French sounding last name that I'm going to bastardize, so I won't try it on air.
Okay. Well, I want to thank that person for leading you to me and making this possible.
And actually, I'm going to be speaking with her tomorrow, so I will let her know. I read in the introduction that you follow or teach an Eastern approach to problem solving. What does that mean, an Eastern approach?
Well, I studied with a psychologist, David K. Reynolds, who has studied Japanese psychotherapies. There are two particular ones, one called Morita, Shoma Morita psychotherapy, and the other called Nikon. And Nikon is a Japanese word, 2 syllables, which means looking inside or self-reflection. And it has to do with the thing we were actually just doing. When you practice Nikon, you actually go to a meditation retreat, And for hours on end, you wrestle with three questions. And the three questions are, what have I received from this person? And you designate who you're thinking about. What have I given or returned to them? And the third question is, what trouble and bother have I caused them? Oh, which is an unusual question. We almost never have asked that. We know a lot about the trouble and bother other people cause us. We're just experts about that. This particular form, Nikon, of meditating on the things that others have done for you is a way of shifting your attention off of our natural self-centeredness about that third, the question of what problems people have caused me, and looking at the world from the vantage point of how much we've received. So that little game about what makes me, thanks to whom am I here, is about looking at the world, at our life, at our past, with this notion of appreciation. And we see gratitude from a broader perspective, not just I'm grateful for the things I like, but I'm also grateful for, in a sense, the problems that they've made me a better person. And the people, when I've had those problems or health issues, all of the people that have helped me and the doctors and nurses. And so that it's a big, long answer to the question about Eastern therapies or Eastern thought. So Nikon is about shifting your mind off of yourself and your problems onto noticing what you've received and how we're the beneficiary of so much more than we notice. See, there's a second Japanese psychologist, Shoma Morita, and his basic thing was to know your purpose in life, accept your feelings, whatever they are. Don't try to fix them. They're okay. And then do what needs to be done. So it's a really proactive approach. And I studied with David Reynolds, and this is called constructive living, with knowing your purpose, accepting your feelings, and doing what needs to be done, which is different from a lot of psychotherapies, which are trying to sort of fix your feelings first. Morita psychiatry would say, you don't need to fix the feelings, but you probably need to fix the behavior. So if there's something I'm not doing, I really need to exercise, but I haven't got the motivation, so I'm going to now see a therapist to see how I can get motivated. Well, Morita would say you don't need motivation, but you need to put on your gym shorts and you need to get in your car and go to the gym, or you need to pull up your yoga mat and start it.
And I love the idea of having purpose, because I know that as older people and older women that we can wake up in the morning and there's a reason, and there is an excitement in a way of looking forward to what it is. And it doesn't have to be some grand purpose about saving the world. It can be something like knitting a shawl for a dear friend. But not everybody, but so many people I've interviewed have talked about the purpose, the importance of purpose.
Yeah. The Japanese have a word, ikigai, which means your reason to get up in the morning. And so it's that, and you're right, it doesn't have to be a global save the world, but the purpose might be to be useful in any way, in anything that comes my way. If someone asks me, what's my purpose? It's that my goal is to try to be helpful, useful in any way that I can on a daily basis. And part of that is looking around and seeing who is in my purview. I am still living with my husband, and so I look to see what needs to be done that is helpful to him. Sometimes that's stay out of his way. And other times it's make him some lunch. Or to take care of the things in my world. So when I say, thanks to whom am I here, I also have to start thinking about the appliances and the refrigerator and the dishes that I use. And so part of my purpose in life is to care for those things, wash the dishes, put them away, I just made some chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, yum, yum, yum. That sounds really good at this time of day for me. A reviewer wrote about your book, Improv Wisdom, Don't Prepare, Just Show Up, that you compare being alive to riding a bicycle. We always feel a little off balance, and this may be a quote from you. We always feel a little off balance, but in the act of balancing, we come alive. Can you explain?
Well, I think that metaphor is about the fact that we imagine that a good life is steady, predictable, and the things that I have planned and worked out are going to go in clockwork. I'm a perfectionist. But the reality is life is much more like a wobble. When we started our program today, the kind program that we're using was having its own sort of way of being in the world. And so it was a great example of sort of the technical problems that we have to kind of work through until we wobble through until a way to do what we want. And recognizing that that is really normal, that that's fine, not letting these things that seem to be technical glitches of various kinds keep us from our appreciation of the world and others. And so the wobble is, when it's true, when you ride a bicycle, you get used to that wobble, and pretty soon you're moving along on the bike. But it's not because the bike is now a railway, a track.
Correct. I want to thank you. The time has just flown by, and perhaps we can get together another time and take this wherever it goes. I'm trying to improvise and not stick to the questions that I have written down on a piece of paper over here.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and your audience, because as older women, I think we've had a lot of experience and there is some wisdom to share. So it's great to have a chance, Jane. And if you send me your mailing address, I'll send you a copy of the book.
Okay, there we go. Okay, that's a little perk, friends, of being the guest on the host on a podcast. Again, thank you so much.
You're really welcome. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.